When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, we're still breathing. Standing up, everybody's gonna see it. Oh, all you need to know is that we're holding on.
Hey guys, so the following video is going to be a discussion between myself and two of my friends and colleagues, Mike Vini and Kara Hayes. We're talking about safety in relation to difficult emotions and safety with ourselves, safety with others, and kind of what that looks like. So we're just having a sort of a casual conversation between the three of us about that, and we hope that you guys get involved, that you comment, and that we have a real, honest conversation about it. I do want to mention that there is one period where we use where a curse word is used, and I just want to be sensitive to some people who that may be a trigger for you. It may bring up some difficult emotions if you hear that, and it surprises you or whatnot. So I just want you to know that it's there in case you are somebody who's maybe highly offended by that. I want to be sensitive to those needs. So enjoy the video, guys, and thanks for watching.
I met two wonderful people in this project who I've had the opportunity to work with now on a regular basis. And we have a nice little group that we chat on Zoom and we talk about some real things. And these conversations have really helped us. And we're all digging into our own personal stuff and ways to help others. And I wanted to introduce you to the two of them. And today we're going to talk with you a little about safety. So here I have on the Zoom call with me Jen Musser. Say hi, Jen.
Hello.
and Kara Hayes. Hi, Kara.
Hey, Mike.
And let's start with Jen. Like, why don't you tell us about you?
All right. So yeah, I met Mike and Kara through the training that we're going through, and I really had no clue where I was going with it to begin with. But it's crazy how, life just kind of, it takes its shape somehow, and here we are all talking about some really deep issues that I think are going to help people a lot. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys. And I am a massage therapist. I'm a licensed physical therapist assistant, but really I just want to help people, and I'm trying to find a way to do that now that I can't actually touch people.
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
And hi, Kara. Tell us about you.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm excited to be here. So I'm a registered nurse. I'm currently working in the psychiatric field. Before that, I was working in substance use disorder, and then before that, pediatrics. So I also I feel similar to Jen in the way that I ended up working in this group and in this training in a way that I just felt called to help. And it felt very natural to kind of do something where we're working with emotions and connecting to ourselves in that way. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to contribute with, the best of what I have. So it's exciting. Good time for us to connect, I think.
It is. And I wanted to show you both something. So this is my meditation chair right here. I think you can see that, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to sit in it right now because it's my favorite place to sit in the home, because it gives me comfort and I feel safe.
Okay.
And safety is an issue that I know we've all talked about, not just in terms of, we're talking about physical safety right now in terms of our health nowadays with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we're all stuck at home. What about emotional safety? Like, what does that look like?
Right. Yeah, to just kind of add something to that, I think that emotional safety really is, it's often sort of how we connect in relationships. Like, what does that look like in relation to another? And I think one point is, to make right now is, how does that look like with our own relationship to ourselves? Like, how safe do we feel connecting to ourselves in this time, especially when everyone is most people are home and they have to sit with themselves. So what does that look like around that? And then how often do we think about, just being with ourselves in our home, or even with our family? So our partners, we're home with them, and we have to connect with that kind of safety. Maybe we're used to this sort of flow of life where we're both are often heading in different directions, than the people in our homes. And what does that look like, being safe with them in this time of crisis? How do we show up, as the person that's safe for our partner? How do we do that?
That's such a good point. And I think it's so interesting because I don't think it's something that we consciously think about. When we meet somebody new, for example, we're not like, oh, I need to, emotionally protect myself, we tend to be like a little more reserved. We're just very like, we talk about very superficial things. And one thing that's kind of coming up for me, and I wanted to bring this up. So I'm a Christian, and we have something called like small groups. And this is kind of actually what brought me to our training to some degree. But it's interesting because we would get together in these small groups. We do it once a week. And, it's a great concept. And we would really, I could tell that we all wanted to connect, like we were all showing up every week and we were all, trying to get to know each other. But I don't really think that the connection should necessarily like take that long. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that we spend so much time protecting ourselves emotionally that it takes us years to get to know each other. And I just don't think that that's necessary. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah. So you're saying that obviously there's things we could do to quicken that if we want to. And on that note, I absolutely agree with you. And I think, the three of us bonded fairly quickly, I thought, in our little secret training that we're not telling anybody about. This is top secret. And the thing I want to go back to with that is you've got two things here with like safety. You've got like safety around others, safety around yourself. And this reminded me that when this whole COVID-19 thing started, like every single person probably in the world, so many emotions came up for me. So many emotions were coming up for me. And I found myself like, maybe it's because I'm a guy. I don't know. I'm a fixer. I like to, it's like, what do I got to do to fix this? I find myself trying to find structure, create goals, things like that, so I can make the most of the time and be productive. And I found that I was doing that to escape fear that was coming up and the loss of control. And that's been a theme in my life, is actually doing that. And it's just interesting, Kara, how you brought up the whole thing, safety even with yourself, because I think I haven't felt safe with myself most of my life, and I've never thought of it that way. And that has led to times where, back to you, Jen, like with others, it was hard to connect,
Yeah, I didn't realize it at first, I'm just going to put this out there. So I felt like I was fairly judgmental. And what I found was that it was really a reflection of myself. I felt, when I was growing up, I felt very judged. And so as a result, I became somewhat judgmental. And I think that kept me at a safe distance from people. That was my way of protecting my emotions, is by just kind of being like, oh, well, they didn't like me because of this, or I don't like this about so, and it kept me from having those relationships. And of course I didn't voice those things, but I think it's something we all do, and I think that it's important to know the reason that we do it. It's not because we really, don't like so-and-so, or so-and-so doesn't really like us. Usually there's like a completely different issue, and it's usually directed like towards ourselves, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So some of the judging I was doing, I think, was really problems that I had with myself versus, problems I had with them.
Yeah.
So, I think we protect ourselves emotionally in so many ways that I think we have to first be aware of,
Right. And I think that leads us back to kind of sitting with ourselves and exploring what's going on internally, which is what's happening at home for a lot of people right now. And I think the safety, another point really is like the safety with ourselves has to come, it comes from a lot of this fear of confronting these really big emotions, like fear, Mike, like what you were saying with fear and your need to control maybe your environment or things that you can utilize to get yourself into a space of safety, and then Jen also sort of projecting this, like, I'm not, your judgments on others, which would, create space and safety. And it sounds like in the end, we're all really yearning for this closeness with our community. So this is what's so exciting about the work our secret work that we're
Yes. incredible because once I came home from one of our first, gatherings, I wanted to bring it home. Like it drove me crazy actually, because I was like, I know like what to do now, right? But not everybody else did. So it was a little much, So that's why I really wanted to learn more about how can we bring this back to people? How can we teach people essentially how to love each other? And so, yeah, that's kind of what started this whole thing for me is I was like, gosh, it's such a great feeling when you truly like allow yourself and you feel that you can allow yourself to be present and to not, feel so guarded. It's a good
Wow.
when you're able to.
I wanted to share something personal because there's a reason that I talk to the two of you, and it's bigger than what I understand sometimes. I'm thinking today we were going to be talking about, trying to record this call and stuff. Well, this morning I woke up and I was an emotional mess that happens often in the morning. And I tried to tune in with myself. I did my best. And I realized that I was having attack thoughts, judgmental thoughts, Jen, about people. Like part of my challenge is I've spent my life just having some like WWE style wrestling matches in my head with people, family members and friends. Like seriously, like we do some like chair throwing and stuff. And so the thing is, it's so funny because going back to what you said, Jen, I realized that, wait a minute, I just have a history of attack here because I need to attack because I'm running away from my feelings. And it's so interesting. And I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Let's just say, okay, that I haven't been through the kind of work that we've been doing together. And I'm not used to sitting with my emotions. And I remember years ago, like if you told me to just like sit with my thoughts, I'd be like, oh no, like, no. Like, what would you say to someone who's never done that before?
I think that the best way to learn or to teach someone else how to be vulnerable or to or something of that sort is to be vulnerable yourself. I think you're doing it, So
That's the Dr. Phil answer.
I think that's a good place to start, though, isn't it? Is that's how we teach others to love. Like we love them, and then they learn to love. So I think it's not so much as teaching them how to do it. I think showing people how to do it. And I think we're doing that right now, by being open and sharing what we have with the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's great, Jen. Right. Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you saying is showing up with your own vulnerability is allowing people to have permission to also do that with themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. No, this is really interesting. One thing I will say from my own experience in the work that I do is a lot of times when I wasn't in touch with my emotions, that would come out in negative ways, very negative, toxic ways. And talking about safety, we're in now close quarters with people, right? That we love, family or friends or housemates or whatever. And I can only imagine like you're almost like forced to have a little more vulnerability. And if you're used to acting out, maybe it's being passive aggressive. I could just imagine the different challenges people must be having in the homes right now with just like dealing with each other on a day-to-day basis, So I think this is really, really important. And one thing I will say as someone who's done this kind of work on myself is that when you start to learn to sit with your feelings, especially the difficult ones, and thank you for saying that, Kara, there's actually gold on the other side.
Yeah, it's like alchemy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So here we are. I think it's important to recognize that, there are these really big feelings. And one important thing about going inward is that, yes, there's gold, but we also, I think in my experience, I leave sometimes with, like Jen, you had said, I leave a process of really diving in, feeling really open and really spacious and like really ready to connect and excited about that experience. And then sometimes I leave that process feeling really deeply inward. And like I'm actually struggling still with some of the emotions. Like, so, for instance, my first process, my first time kind of doing this on a deep level within a group, I confronted a lot of fear. Like Mike, you had mentioned like how you realized that fear and that control had kind of created distance and safety for you, within a community setting. I didn't even notice how much fear I had had until I went way inward, and how much that had, and it was within the weeks later after that experience that I recognized how much distance that had created for me. So I was completely unaware of the fear and the distance. So I think, recognizing that this can create an openness, and more connection immediately, or it can kind of it can create a lot of work, sort of, it can put work on your plate, like where you can, it takes time to digest. So I think that safety is really important to recognize, wow, here we are, we're doing this processing work, and we're showing up within our homes right now and in our family, and safety is important for both reasons. Like maybe we're not ready to confront, the people in our home with all these emotions, whether they're open and exciting and loving, or maybe they're just like, there's still deep work, like that might process for a couple days or, a couple weeks. And I just recognizing that.
Yeah. Kara, do you think a good place to start might be to just like name your emotions? Just when you sit with them, just name it, like, what am I feeling? And try to, rather than coming out and telling everybody this is how I feel, like I would want to do, just maybe try to sit with that, and once you've done that, then open up for conversation once you've kind of named it and processed it to some degree. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jen, I think that's a really important point to make, because unlike thoughts, which are really often clear, like I know that, what's pacing through my mind is a lot more clear than an emotional response. Often, I think it's nonverbal sometimes. Like what am I actually feeling? A lot of people haven't sat with themselves long enough to know, and maybe we're not culturally, sort of raised to do that. Maybe that's not important naturally, within our cultural setting. Like, is it normal to sit with anger?
Yeah.
Is
but
it
don't you think that
fear, especially as you get beyond sort of 2, 3, 4 years old? And often culturally, it's like, no, you're okay. Shut it down. Shut it down. You're okay. Like the crying is too loud, or the banging things, or however that looks, pediatrically, like, put it away, store those emotions somewhere else. And I think, yeah, as adults, we're asking ourselves to connect with parts of ourselves that we don't know how to identify verbally, maybe. So even just sitting with, what am I feeling, and just exploring, allowing that to rise up, and exploring, what is this? And sometimes it's sadness. Immediately we can kind of feel sadness, and then the longer we sit, maybe it's like, yeah, underneath that, I'm pretty fucking angry. Like I feel pretty fucking angry.
Right?
I feel powerless. I don't. So yeah, Jen, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think it is important to just allow yourself to feel something, and then try to start with connecting to what that is. Yeah.
Yeah, these are skills. These are not something that we're like born with. We just don't know. It's unfortunately, we don't really, and haven't been taught well how to love not just others, but ourselves. And so I think it's really going to be a process of learning new skills.
Yeah. And can I say one thing too? And Kara, thank you so much for saying that, because, again, for myself this morning, as I told you, I had to identify some feelings. And I don't know if this is the case. I'm about to stereotype my gender here, men. But sometimes we have difficulty identifying our feelings, and I remember for years my therapist would ask me, actually we had a session yesterday via phone, and she said to me that, 10 years ago when I first started working with her, that's how long I've been with this therapist working on my feelings, by the way, that I would intellectualize something, and say, oh yeah, I'm angry at this person, or yeah, okay, that sounds fine. Yeah, I'm probably sad about this. But only recently have I gotten to the point where I can actually sit in the feeling. Mm-hmm. And so I think for a lot of people who might not be used to this, you might try to identify your feelings and not come up with an answer, and that's okay. If you're just starting out doing that. As you said, Jen, this is a skill. These are tools that take time. But again, the benefits are really outstanding. And the thing is also, Kara, I just want to reiterate, no one's going to go through this the same way. When you do this, it doesn't mean you're going to do this and, oh, I'm happy now. It's not like that. But what happens is I believe over time that you become more comfortable with yourself. You can actually be more empathetic to others and more productive in life. That's what I've found for me.
Yeah, Mike, I can agree with that. I think that that's absolutely true. I think that you're just more available. You end up more available for yourself and for your community and for your people. It's just, and for the work that you might be showing up to do, no matter what that is. There's something about digging into the emotional self and recognizing what are our emotions. I think they process quicker that way. Like, we can connect faster in the moment. We can kind of control the way we show up, right? It's like, whether we're triggered and suddenly we feel angry, maybe before, like Mike, you had said earlier, that might have come out sideways or passive aggressively in the moment in your past. And now, it's a process. And now, like Jen said, we're learning. But yeah, and then maybe now, after many weeks, many months, many years, you start to identify that I don't need to respond in this way. I'm feeling angry by something this other person had, maybe the behavior they had or what they had said to me was triggering. And I can identify that quicker. I can respond differently. I can show up and just understand, maybe it's not about me. Like, maybe this is a defense mechanism for them. And maybe this is the way that they're projecting to keep themselves emotionally safe. Is this about me? And I think that doing this work, it just creates so much internal space and so much availability. And I think that's what's so rewarding and why we're here.
Yeah. Well, can I just ask this, because we're going to be wrapping up this soon for our viewers here, and thank you both for joining me on this and trusting me to be on video with me. I really appreciate it, but I wanted to ask you both a question that I think actually just will help me as your friend. During this time of the coronavirus pandemic, how has your attention to your emotions helped you thus far?
How has my attention to my emotions helped? I guess, just like I said, just naming them has kind of helped me. Just being like, I feel angry today, or I feel sad, and giving myself that space has just allowed me to walk through it, I guess, versus, the old me might have just been upset and not really like understood why, or even named that I was upset. You know what I mean? Like, I just would kind of take it on other people. Like, I would wake up and I would just kind of be like in a bad mood. You know what I mean? And that then sets up my day for failure. So I think just being able to, process and name those feelings for me allowed me to deal with them, walk through them without putting other people through the misery of my big emotions, if that makes sense.
Maturity. Wow.
It took a long time to learn.
just got real right there. What about you, Kara?
Yeah, I think learning to identify what I'm experiencing and how that helps now is vital, really. I think at this time, sort of considering there's a pandemic, I have feelings. I feel torn, and I feel like I'm wrestling with making choices daily. Like, it's like, am I at work, and then I'm out in the field, and I'm dealing with what comes up in the moment again and again. Am I doing enough here? And then kind of coming home and just saying, what was my priority? Like, am I doing enough with this? So just sort of identifying, because there's such an overload of input, and the world is changing vastly daily right now. It is incredibly important and vital to my well-being, which I think is keeping my immune system in a safe space right now. If I'm not processing as this is coming in, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to keep myself well, within my, emotionally well, physically well, even, and mentally well. Like, it's a holistic process at this point. I'm grateful for this work, specifically at this time. And also, even I'm able to hold more for my family, so because I can process what I'm going through. Like Jen said, she's waking up and she's taking responsibility for herself in her place in her day, and how she shows up. And it gives you sort of more room to navigate how that might play out, like how much more time you might find to be present with your children or your partner to be able to do this work. And so, yeah, I think it's a vital tool, skill to have, especially now.
And I just want to add too that, on the other side of anger, we know is fear. And I think that's so important right now because we're seeing so many people angry at this point in time, and understandably, you know, people are afraid. And I think knowing that has really helped me to give people a lot more grace, you know, because we're all going through this and we're all like, oh, like what? We're all scared. And I think just knowing that it's really like when somebody's angry and they're kind of seeming like they're taking it out on me, just being like, you know, they're probably more scared than they are angry. And just knowing that helps me to be able to deal with them in a loving way.
Oh, that's great, Jen.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you both so much. And I'm looking forward to continuing these videos. And if you got something out of this video today, I'd love to learn what's on your mind about difficult emotions. And I invite you to leave a comment below. We'll be reading them, and we might even create a video and respond to some of your comments. And that being said, my name is Mike Vini. This is Kara Hayes, Jen Musser, and we are the Difficult Emotions Secret Project. And we're out.